It's actually in the afternoon in India. Um, so I'm going to talk about the applications of CFD. CFD is nothing but the computational fluid dynamics, how it is used as an application, as a tool, as a software, how it is used in the automotive industry is going to be the content of my presentation today. So before going into the content, just I would like to say a few words about Valeo, because many of us may not be aware, a company called Valeo. It's a French-based MNC. It's having a global presence across almost all countries. And in India, we have 12 factories, and we've been tie up with some other Indian industries and OEMs. And we have an R&D center in Chennai, that's in India, where I work in the Chennai office. It's actually an automotive tier 1 supplier company. Hope all of you are aware of the tier 1 and tier 2 paradigms or the definitions in the automotive industry. The tier 1 suppliers are the companies which manufacture subsystems and systems to the components to the original equipment manufacturers, OEMs. In that sense, Valeo is having a client list of almost all the automotive OEMs across the world, starting from Indian OEMs and across the world, Audi, Porsche, Bentley, or Ferrari. You can name the vehicle, BMW, you name any automotive OEM. So we have one or few automotive components or subsystems of Valeo. That's how the presence of Valeo is there in the automotive industry. And the Valeo's major business units are four. It is classified into four. The one is the powertrain systems, which deals with the electrical and transmission systems. And visibility systems, we call this group as visibility, which helps the driver to have a better visibility of road. During rains and fog, we use wipers, and during the night drives, we use lighting systems. So we call this group as a visibility system group. And the comfort and driving assistance, where the interior controls, telematics, and driving assistance sensors and all, this comprises the set of group under the CDA. We call it CDA, comfort and driving assistance. And the fourth, thermal systems. So whether it's an IC engine powered vehicle or an electric vehicle or an autonomous vehicle, for human comfort, we definitely need ACs. So we have some cooling systems in the front, which is colored blue, the radiators or the condenser cooling heat exchangers, the refrigerant circuits, and the batteries. For the electric vehicles, right now, we mostly use lithium-ion battery packs. And during the charging and discharging cycles of the battery, definitely heat release will be there. So that thermal management also comes under the thermal systems group. So that's why that is also colored blue. This is the basic introduction about the company and the business units under which all the products are categorized. More information can be obtained from our website, valeo.com. So stopping at this point about the company, let me proceed with the presentation on the topic. Applications of CFD in automotive industry. So before going into the CFD stuff, I would like to give a brief intro on what a product is comprising of and how the analysis helps the product development. Then I will touch upon the CFD part. Then I will go into the applications of CFD specific to automotive industry, and few other applications also I will just highlight. So I would like to bring this presentation in a format that the audience should be able to comprehend how the CFD as a tool or a technology, how it is being used in the automotive industry. That is the main objective of the presentation. So what is a product? So product, typically we know each and everything is a product, starting from a small nut, bolt, or a washer, or any screws or anything is a product. And you can have some product like this, wheeled shoes or a printer, anything is a product. A car, a whole part of a car is also a product, and as big as an airplane or a rocket or anything, whatever we see is a product. So The number of products in typically in an automobile, this is a mini car, which is typically available in India. One of the famous manufacturer is Maruti in India. And this is some of the old variant of Maruti. We call this a Maruti 800. It's 800cc engine, 799cc engine capacity. And in that car itself, we have n number of components, which is actually kind of a tear down picture what we are seeing right now. You can see the number of components involved, number of small parts, spare parts, springs, nuts, those kind of things, the tires, suspension system, steering rods, the doors, the seat covers, everything. So each and everything constitute a product, and the combined some parts together will form a system, subsystem, and the subsystems together will form a system, and then all the systems put together, we assemble the car. So the functioning of the vehicle as a car depends on the performance of the individual systems and the subsystems. That is why analysis is important, and that is why we are using the simulation tools in the automotive industry. So product is nothing but a need satisfying for an organization, and customers buy the satisfaction, not just for the parts. It may be a goods or a service. Say, for example, if you take Procter & Gamble as an example, they don't sell chemicals or the detergents as a product. They are actually selling the benefit to the customer, that the cleaning of the cloths, and the customer buys the products just for the satisfaction they have, cleaner cloths. So the product should satisfy a need of a particular person or an individual or an organization. It's a need satisfying offer. So design is nothing but developing a concept and making it into a product. So starting from a simple concept sketch, the entire product is getting developed. So that's where the design comes in and developing a product. I would like to use this slide to give a clear picture of how the understanding between the specific need of a customer and how it turns out to be a different way of understanding when it comes to the product development. So we have a customer, and customer contacts a company. Say it's a kind of an IT company, let us assume. And he contacts and he says his need. And when the customer explains the need, it was understood like this. We can see there is a big tree, and there is a trunk, there are some branches, there are 2 ropes, and the customer says he wants some place to sit and swing. That is the expectation of the customer. Okay, and this is how the sales rep understood it. So he understood that still the contents are same. The trunk is there, the branches are there, 2 ropes are there, and there is a plate or a flat seat where the people can sit and swing. But the way he understood is different. So he puts 2 ropes on the 2 sides of the trunk. So the swinging is not possible, but this is how he understood it. But the ingredients are the same. But when the solution management wrote the requirements, so they understood there is a problem. Okay, so the ropes are on the 2 sides of the trunk, so they cannot swing. So they decided, okay, we should have a space for it to swing. So they cut the trunk in between, and they place 2 side supports so that this trunk, the swing can happen. So they functionally, they made it viable with additional 2 support structures. How the developers coded it. So this is how it happened. So there is a trunk, there are 2 ropes, 1 plate. So every ingredient is there. The understanding is different. But how the marketing people described it. So they described it to the customer, the development is in progress. It's very good. We have seen the beta testing and all, so everything is going good. How the project was documented. There is nothing. How the services is implemented. So they put a trunk, they branch, the rope, they miss the plate. And there is no another rope is also missing. But how the customers was built, it was built like this. How it was supported, it was supported like this. But what the customer actually need is this. He was actually having in mind this. but he was not able to express what he really wants, but he explained it in the first picture, what he wants. So the customer, whatever the customer explains may not be the true expectation of him. So he may not be able to explicitly say what he actually needs. So the requirements need to be understood clearly to make a clear product development. So this just I want to highlight on how the communication can go weird or can be different, can be understood differently by different departments if the departments are not discussing or interacting closely. Having said that, the customer typically looks out for a reduced cost at a shortest solution time for the problem he is having, but with the highest quality. So these are the typical needs of any customer, whoever it is, whatever the product it is. Having this particular requirements of the customer, how the product development is influencing the product development itself. So this particular picture shows about 5% investment in product design has a 70% influence in the product development. Because if we miss this 5% of product design, if we don't consider the product development in the initial stages, the understanding and the requirement of meeting the requirements of the customer, understanding the actual need of the customer, if we miss that, then the rest of the things, the 50% material effort and the 15% labor effort and the 30% overhead effort, all these efforts is going to be waste, and finally the product will be useless to the customer. So that is why the product understanding at the initial 5% stage is very important. That is where the analysis kind of things comes into picture. So when we do a product development, it is not like you have a CAD engineer to develop a CAD model and take that CAD model into manufacturing and directly go for the assembly and then give it to the customer. This is not the way it is going to happen. So we invest more time in the initial stages. We develop a CAD, do a simulation, do a computer modeling, do an analysis, ascertain the performance in the simulation itself. Once the simulation performance is satisfactory, then we will be going ahead with the manufacturing with the investment of the labor. The labor is manufacturing, the employees are working in the factories, assemble the components, and then finally the product will be delivered to the customer. That is where the simulation or analysis domain comes into the picture to have a better product delivered to the customer. So we should not do over design, and we should not be overthinking also. In the initial stages, we have to be cautious. We know that no idea is dumb, but we should not make something like an idea like this, which should not be really a dumb idea. So investment in the initial stages of design and analysis is very critical and important. Coming to the analysis is basically categorized into three based on the domain in which it operates. When we are talking about these solid or structural mechanics, when we are dealing with solid materials, say a plastic chair or a solid iron rod made into a sheet or any component, or a thin metal rod is fabricated into a screw or a washer or a nut, something like that. So when we are doing analysis of that, when we are dealing with the solids, we call this solid mechanics. And when the fluid comes into picture, we call it as a fluid mechanics. When added to this, either solid or the fluid, added to that when we have heat transfer, we call this a thermomechanics. So this is how basically the mechanics is divided into, and all the simulations will come under either one of these three categories. Either we'll be having a pure solid analysis or a pure fluid analysis, or we'll be having a solid plus thermo or a fluid plus thermal. These are the combinations of analysis that will be carried out in any engineering industry. So fluid when it comes to the fluid, so before going into the computational fluid dynamics, I would like to give a small intro on the fluid and the dynamics part of it, and then we will go into the fluid dynamics. Fluid is a substance which deforms continuously. We all know that from the basics of fluid mechanics. We might have studied this and all in our basic engineering. And the flow is classified into different types based on the types of the characteristics of the flow, whether it can be called as a laminar flow or a turbulent flow. When the fluid particles move in a smooth layered fashion, we call it as a laminar. And the fluid particles, when it moves in a chaotic fashion, we call it turbulent flow. With respect to space, when it comes to the time, we categorize the fluid flow as steady versus unsteady. The steady flow is nothing but the fluid properties at a given point in space or constant in time. It's called a steady flow. And when it is not constant, we call it as unsteady flow. Another way of characterizing the fluid flow is incompressible or compressible. Incompressible is nothing but when the density does not vary with respect to time or space, we call it as incompressible. When there is a change in density with respect to space and time, we call it as a compressible flow. And Mach number comes into picture when we talk about compressible flows, and when Mach number is less than 1, we call it subsonic, and greater than 1, we call it supersonic. And there are some flows which are hypersonic. Wherever there is a flow, wherever there is a fluid, basically fluid, we know that it can be in two forms. Either it can be a gaseous fluid or it can be a liquidous fluid. Gaseous fluid, we know air, any organ gas, oxygen gas, or anything in a gaseous form with the intermolecular distance more, so with a very thin bonding between the atoms, we call it as a gaseous fluid. And when the liquidous fluid also, we have a lot of examples. Even within our body, we have a lot of liquids. Our body itself is composed of kind of 70% of liquid water. And we breathe in oxygen, air, we breathe in air, utilize the oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide after the chemical reaction happening in the lungs. So we have blood, which is a non-Newtonian fluid flowing inside our body. So we have fluids everywhere. So wherever there is a fluid, there is a scope for the computational fluid dynamics domain to come into picture, and the CFD can help analyze the systems in the fluids perspective. So another way of classification is single phase or a multi-phase. When the fluid flow is happening in a single phase, that means when there is a pipe flow, there is a water pipe, and the water goes inside the pipe. So we call that water is flowing. That means it's a single phase. But if I heat up the pipe externally with an electric heater or something, there is a possibility that it can boil off and it can change phase and it can have a multi-phase flow. Another way of categorization, homogeneous or heterogeneous. When only one type of material is there, it's called homogeneous. When two types of species mix up, it's called heterogeneous. In rivers, we can have a heterogeneous flow where we can see the sand particles getting carried away with the river. We typically call it as heterogeneous flow. In oil industry, we have, when the oil is excavated, from the crude oil is excavated, it's a mixture of multiple species: water, sand, oil, crude oil, along with that some gases. So everything will come as a mixture. That's a heterogeneous flow. So all types of flow can be simulated, can be understood for the characteristics using CFD. So when we are talking about analysis, what is we are doing? We are trying to convert the physical problem into a mathematical problem using three different domains like computer science, mathematics, and science, which combine together. That's a typical conglomeration of different fields. That is where we do the analysis. So we convert the physical systems into a mathematical problem and solve the mathematical problem using the governing equations. And there are governing equations for solid mechanics, fluid mechanics, and thermomechanics. And those governing equations are solved. which is typically a partial differential equations being solved in the using some softwares. The software solve the equations. This is called the mathematical modeling. When you come to the industrial way of engineering analysis, we typically do different types of analysis. One is a finite element analysis, which is a kind of predominant analysis. Say if we consider 100% of analysis in any industry, 100% as a total quantum of analysis being carried out, it will be like 70% will be finite element analysis. And then remaining 30%, out of that 30, 25% may be CFD. And there are some 5% of some special types of analysis like casting simulations or multi-body dynamics. Those kind of simulations will come into picture. And finite element analysis are further classified into durability, safety, powertrain. These kind of analysis are being carried out. We have specified softwares for all these analysis. And finally comes the CFD. Computational fluid dynamics, as we already saw, steady, transient, single phase, multi-phase, reacting, non-reacting, laminar, turbulent, all these types of simulations can be carried out in CFD. So coming to the main picture, what is CFD? CFD is a simulation of fluids engineering system using mathematical formulation of the physical problem using numerical methods. Typically, any finite element analysis or computational fluid dynamic analysis can be solved using mathematical methods. We know how the partial differential equations can be solved, like finite element method, finite difference methods, and finite volume methods. Particularly, CFD uses the finite volume approach for solving the governing equations. There are some specific solvers which use the finite element formulation, and there are some solvers which use the vortex element methods. There are some solvers which use the lattice-Boltzmann methods or meshless algorithms. There are different approaches are there. Mainstream, majority of the softwares follow the finite volume approach for solving the governing equations and use the FVM as a numerical procedure to solve those equations. So I'm not going to touch detail into the mathematical part of it because that will be a typical classroom lecture on finite volume method and finite difference method or finite element methods. So I'll be touching a basics of the CFD. I will take you into the application part of the CFD in the subsequent slides. So historically, we had only analytical fluid dynamics and experimental fluid dynamics. Analytical is kind of creating equations and solving the equations in using the mathematical procedures manually, and we do experiments. So that is how the fluid systems were studied in the past. And CFD, computational fluid dynamics, was possible with the advent of computers. When we initially started with 500 flops of calculation in 1947, and we achieved something like 20 teraflops of calculation using clusters and high performance computing stations in 2003 onwards. And then onwards, it's a quantum leap in the computing power. So with the advent of high performance computing, CFD is possible to solve one of the complex problems across the globe. Even weather simulation, weather monitoring kind of predictions also is possible. And a lot of physical systems and a lot of physics is getting involved. Previously, because of the limitations in the computing power, some of the physics were eliminated. Okay, let me assume that there is no radiation. Let me assume that the flow is single phase. Let me assume that the flow is laminar. So those kind of assumptions were made into the mathematical modeling because of the limitations in the computing power. But with the higher computing power, more physics can be embedded into the simulation so that more realistic outputs can be obtained and can be compared with the experiments. I'm just showing this particular video where you can observe water is flowing over the some stones or pebbles. If we observe this, let me play it again. Sorry. So if we observe this again, we can observe the water when it is coming straight from this portion. If you follow my cursor, when it comes in this fashion, it doesn't know that there is a stone, but when it comes closer, it knows that there is a stone and it takes a diversion. So the diversion of the fluid flow is happening because of the resistance offered by the stone, and the stone sends a pressure signal in the reverse direction upstream of the fluid flow. And that's why the fluid is able to sense that there is a pressure, higher intensity of pressure is happening closer to the stone, and it takes the least resistance path and it moves away from the stone. This is the nature of any fluid. Similar way, when you are testing a car in a wind tunnel, as I am showing in the bottom picture, and there are some blue colored dyes are injected, powdered dyes are injected in the air, because air is invisible. Without a dye, we cannot visualize the flow. So I'm just showing a flow pattern. This is how typically the flow visualization studies will be carried out in a wind tunnel to understand the fluid dynamics. This is a typical experimental fluid dynamics. To understand the flow, so we are visualizing the flow using a smoke or a colored dye or colored powders being sprayed over in the along with the air stream, so that we can visualize the flow. Without this smoke, it will be difficult to understand the flow complexities or the flow dynamics in the visualized form. So that's why we are using a smoke. Here also we can see that when the air is going and hitting the car, it takes we can observe from here, it just moves away from the car surface, and we can see the topmost layer of the airstream flow and the bottommost airstream flow getting compressed above the roof of the car. So because there is a resistance offered by the solid body sitting in this area, so the fluid is getting compressed and the fluid streamlines are merging together, forming a high resistance area. Sorry, it's actually a high velocity zone. Because of the lesser space, the velocity will get increased. And if you see a pressure plot on the rooftop, the pressure will be less, because when the velocity is more, the pressure will be less. So this is how the fluid characteristics will be understood in CFD. And this is an experimental fluid dynamics. So if we want to study more detailed understanding of the fluid behavior, we need to have a CFD done on this car. Because when the jet of colored dyes are going, we are seeing a one particular plane. We are not seeing a 360-degree visualization of that particular car, because we cannot see that. So we are sending one particular plane, and if we just move the plane of the colored dyes, we will be able to understand the differences in the flow pattern. So if we do a CFD, we can definitely understand the full 360-degree of the flow visualization. So just, I want to show the dynamics of the fluid, how it behaves with resistance. Here I'm highlighting where are the applications of CFD. CFD, as I mentioned earlier, CFD is applied everywhere, wherever there is a fluid flow. Eyeballs, we have some fluid, and CFD can be applied there. That is where the biomedical industry uses it. Aerospace industry uses it, not just for the aerodynamic drag prediction, even for military aircrafts. When the store separation happens, when the bombs are dropped from the plane, how the trajectory of the projected bombs, how it will go. We can see some tails in the backside of each of the bomb. There is a X cross type of tails are there. Actually, that is going to have a swelling effect, and that will control the dynamics of the fluid around it, and that will control the movement of the bomb that is getting dropped. And these kind of studies also can be done using CFD in aerospace industry. And automotive industry, we are using extensively CFD for the drag prediction and thermal and fluid flow simulation of different components. And in the chemical industry, there a lot of industries are using CFD for understanding the mixing behavior of chemicals in a container, or how this effective mixing happens when the two chemicals are mixed. And when the HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning environments inside a cabin or inside an office room or in the building HVAC, a lot of CFD is being used. And in the hydraulics industry, the dam break simulations, how the flow is happening and which are the areas the flow will happen, and those kind of studies are being used in the marine industry also. In the marine, the boat simulation or the ship design industry is using to understand the drag offered by the shape of the hull and the other structures in the vehicle, in the ship body. So that is being used by marine industry. In sports, in oil and gas, as I mentioned, the mix of multi-phase fluids is happening in the oil and gas industry. And in the power generation industry also being used, also it is also used for environmental modeling. Suppose there is a exhaust gas of a chimney, and the exhaust gas is coming out of a chimney of an industry, how it spreads into the nearby locality or the city or the neighborhood of the industry, how it spreads based on the past history of wind pattern in that particular locality. The simulation can be carried out and the deposition can be identified. So that will help the health industry or the health ministry to determine where to move the population away if there is a particular period, if there is a harmful exhaust comes from the chimney, how it can be modeled. So these kind of applications are always use CFD as a main tool in different industries. Flow and heat transfer, aerodynamics, material processing applications, propulsion and power, ventilation, heating, ventilation, air cooling of buildings, chemical vapor deposition in the IC circuits manufacturing, heat transfer of electronics packaging applications, and many, many more applications are there for CFD. And when it comes for heat transfer, it solves all the three modes of heat transfer: conduction, convection, and radiation. So I would like to pictorially show what are the modes of heat transfer. Coming to the simulation process, simulation in CFD involves three major processes. First is a pre-process, and the second is a solution, and third is a post-processing. In the pre-processing, the CAD model, what is developed by the CAD engineer, will be imported into the pre-processing softwares, and the model will be split into small pieces, that is called discretization or mesh generation. So we need a smaller pieces of the elements of the CAD model because we need to solve the finite volume approach method of solving the partial differential equations in each of the individual cell centers. So that is why we need to create a mesh. The solution part, we normally solve the governing equations. The partial differential equation form of the governing equations will be solved using the finite volume approach for the set of boundary conditions we are going to solve. And then post-processing gives the result. We extract the results from the solver and we make an engineering judgment out of it to understand the behavior of the flow and the heat transfer and how the system behaves in a particular way. So these are the advantages of the CFD, like ability to simulate ideal conditions, and comprehensive information can be made available because experiments where we can have only a limited data. CFD can give us an unlimited volume of data. And this is the process what the CFD packages do. It solves the governing equations. This is the first equation is the continuity equation, and the second equation is called the momentum equation. This is the partial differential equation form of these basic governing equations of any fluid flow. And this continuity on the momentum equation is actually known as Navier-Stokes equation, developed by Navier and Stokes in two different geographical locations, but they were all creating a similar kind of set of equations for the fluid flow governance. And to give the credit to both, the equation is called as Navier and Stokes equation. And additional transport equations will be solved along with this flow and continuity equation. I'm showing the x momentum equation along with the continuity equation. And for the turbulent flow, we will be solving the Reynolds averaged the flow properties, and the time average properties will be used. These are the equations which will be solved in the transient equations. And this slide shows the Navier-Stokes equations in 3D form. The first equation is a u component, that's the x velocity, and v component y velocity, and w component is the z velocity component. And the equation is categorized or can be identified with a different term. The first one is a local acceleration term. The second part of the equation is convection term. Third part on the left-hand side of the equation is pressure gradient, and the fourth term is the viscous term. So this is the governing equation, set of equations, along with the equation of state and the Rayleigh equation when it comes for the natural convection mode of flow. This set of equations are being solved in the background. So we will not see any equation in the front when we are solving a CFD problem, when we are solving a problem using any CFD software. We will not see these equations in the front. This is a summary of all these equations, including the energy equation. When the energy is temperature gradients or temperature is solved, so we are having an internal energy equation and equation of states. All these equations are getting solved. As a process, we take the geometry, do some process on the geometry, apply the physics. We will decide what are all the physics being solved. So it's up to the engineer who is working on the problem. He needs to understand what are all the physics applicable to the problem, whether this problem involves heat transfer or not. So he can decide, he has to decide whether for the assumptions I have, whether the flow is going to be behaving as a compressible flow or a incompressible flow. The engineer has to decide. And based on that, he need to decide and choose the flow properties. He need to identify the proper viscous model, and he has to specify the boundary conditions, and he has to specify the initial conditions if it is going to be a transient flow analysis. So physics is set as a second step, and the meshes develop. As I mentioned, we will be splitting the domain into small pieces. That's a meshing. And then apply the governing equations in the solver and solve the equations. Once we get the solution done, we extract the reports and we post-process the reports and make an engineering decision based on the results. So this is the entire CFD process. I'm just giving this as an overview. I'm not going to go into detail into each and every aspect of it, because that will be kind of a PG level course of handling a full semester course on CFD. That will be too much for the 1 hour session now. So I'm just keeping up with the process. Meshing or discretization, I'm keep on telling that. So what is meshing? Suppose if we have a pipe flow and we have a pipe domain like this, and what we are seeing right now here is nothing but the control volume is nothing but a smallest element cut out of the fluid domain. If I just want to use a pointer here, okay. Suppose if I take a pipe, if I CAD model a pipe, what I will be typically modeling in the CAD is the solid thickness. This defines a pipe, and in the CAD model, I will be having the solid thickness, the top thickness and bottom thickness, and this is the empty space available for the fluid to flow. But in the terms of CFD, when we are doing a CFD simulation, I typically don't need the solid. all I need is the volume that is going to define the fluid domain. This particular volume is my area of interest in CFD. So what I will do is I will model a solid cylinder. I will model a solid cylinder like this, which will represent the fluid volume. So this is the domain which is pulled out from this solid pipe, and this is the solid volume. We model the solid in the CAD model as a solid volume, but we define this as a fluid in the CFD software with the circumferential surface defined as a wall. So when we define the circumferential surface as a wall, that means that it is impermeable to fluid. So the fluid is constrained to go from this inlet towards the outlet and in the only axial direction of the pipe. It cannot seep out through the wall surface because I define this as a circumferential surface as a wall, meaning that it is impermeable to fluid. So this is how I define a CFD domain. So the solid domain actually modeled in a CAD is not directly required in a CFD. This solid domain is also required the solid domain is also required in the CFD analysis if I do a thermal study. Suppose if I have a heat transfer, Q, supplied onto the pipe surface. I wind a electrical coil over this pipe. I wind up an electrical coil and supply current through it. So the pipe gets heated up. So when the pipe gets heated up, the solid portion conducts the heat. The solid portion conducts the heat. So there will be a temperature T1 and there will be a conduction happening. And the internal surface will be T2. And there is a fluid flow happening inside the pipe. This is the thickness of the pipe. In this scenario, I will be needing both the solid and the fluid. In that scenario, I will consider the solid volume also. Otherwise, for a flow only problem where there is no heat transfer, I rarely require the solid portion in it. So I will use only the fluid volume in the CFD analysis. That particular pipe, if I split that into small pieces, I call that as a single control volume. And within this small control volume, the finite volume approach is going to solve the governing equations with the cell center as the node of operation. In a finite element method, we use the element center as a central point, and in the vertices of the element, typically the equation gets solved and there is a element center. But in the finite volume approach, each three-dimensional cell will have a cell centroid, and that cell centroid will be the nodal point of operation for the mathematical finite volume method to solve the governing equations. This is how the discretization helps in the CFD. And next I would like to introduce to you on the turbulence modeling, because turbulence is omnipresent. The breath, what we exhale out and inhale in, that air, the breathing process is also a turbulence flow. It's not a laminar flow. Naturally, any flow is a turbulent flow. So you cannot say a particular flow is laminar unless otherwise you put on some constraints to make the flow a laminar. So we are artificially creating a laminar flow. Otherwise, natural flows are all turbulent flows. So we need to understand what is turbulence. Turbulence is, if you look at the dictionary, it's nothing but characterized by conflict, disorder, or confusion, not stable or calm. It's kind of a chaotic flow. Turbulence cannot be defined with a single sentence, but it can be characterized by the properties of the fluid. Any natural flow, a flow in a river or a rocky zone is a turbulent flow. The tornadoes or any volcano eruptions or whatever happens is also a turbulent flow. Even a cup of coffee, if you take and stir, we are doing a turbulence flow initiation in that. I typically use this example. When we take a cup of coffee, you take a cup of milk, pour some sugar cubes, and add some coffee powder. You allow it, the milk is hot initially, okay? There is a thermal problem. So when we allow the sugar and the coffee powder to mix on its own, we allow it to mix on its own. If you do that, it will take long time. By the time the hotness of the milk will get down and it will be cold, and it's very difficult for us to drink. If you want a hot coffee, you will not get it. Maybe if you're liking a cold coffee, you can have it, it's not a problem. But what we try to do is typically we take a spoon and stir the mixture. We stir the mixture of milk and the sugar cubes and the coffee powder. We stir it with a spoon. By this process, what we are actually doing is creating turbulence. So turbulence is nothing but adding energy to the fluid to have a thorough mixing in a short span of time. So in this way, the sugar and coffee powder mixes well with the milk in a short time. So that means the needed output, a hot coffee, is uptime in a short span of time. So turbulence is actually good, and it is definitely good. But in some simulations, we will suppress the turbulence for the sake of simplicity or assumption point of view, and we'll solve a laminar flow equation, a laminar flow. But typically all the flows are turbulent flows. Some flow examples, as I already shown, a car, here's a truck where there is a flow is coming from the left to the right, and we can see how the flow recirculates closer to the cabin, and behind the cabin there is a green fluid flow that gets a recirculation zone in the space, and the red colored streak of fluid flow, the streamline, which shows that there is a small kind of a flow jump, and this is called typically a forward facing step in a flow problem. When a flow is happening, typically we will have these kind of scenarios. So this is a forward facing step when the fluid is facing a step and rises up. And when the fluid is coming and if it falls in a step, we call this as a rearward facing step. This is a forward facing step and the rearward facing step. These kind of scenarios will happen in day-to-day life and all the engineering applications where the flow just rises up or falls down. So these kind of scenarios will happen, and typically any programmer who develops his own code will solve this particular two problems, a forward facing step problem and a rearward facing step problem. And we will take a 2D domain, and this is the volume of interest where the fluid flow is happening, and he will specify a boundary condition and solve this flow. And there will be, you can expect there is a recirculation in this zone, and here you can expect a recirculation in this zone. So this kind of characteristics are natural in a forward facing step and a rearward facing step. And this is a kind of a flow happening in a straight channel diverging in a lateral part. When the flow divergence happens, you can observe this is the flow direction. Actually, this is a water tunnel, and this particular white colored patches is nothing but hydrogen bubbles emanating from a thin violin wire or a very thin wire which is supplied with a DC power supply from a battery. And when we supply power to this in a pulsed manner, if I just switch on, there is a button will be here. When I just press this button, a supply will go, and suddenly hydrolysis will happen in this particular water flow, and the hydrogen bubbles getting released. So this is a hydrogen bubble flow visualization of a water flow. So in this location, when the hydrogen bubbles are released, you can see the pattern of fluid flow, and there is a boundary layer development, and there is a flat constant velocity region, and there is again a boundary layer development. When it goes to a divergent portion, you can observe there is a reverse flow is happening. That means that the flow gets separated from this point and this is how the flow gets separated. And within this zone, the flow is still behaving the similar way. And in the separation zone, you can observe there is a large recirculation region. That's why the flow is coming from the rear side towards the front. And we can observe that in this particular flow reversal, the bubbles are going in the reverse direction. So these kind of flow understandings will help us to visualize the flow. But as you see, we are seeing that in particular 3 locations, it is difficult to put n number of locations in the experiments. That is why we prefer computational fluid dynamics to understand you can create n number of locations, infinite number of locations. You can create these locations and you can understand the flow behavior, and that is the advantage of using CFD. And boundary layer tripping, when there is a laminar separation happens, as in the top picture, you can see the drag is very large. The rear zone where the flow is having a flow reversal, this is very large. Just I'm putting a small trip wire in this location and makes the flow to transform itself into a turbulent flow, and the turbulent separation is delayed. Here the separation happens here, the turbulent separation is delayed, and you can see the recirculation region is reduced. This is what the tripwire helps. It induces the transition to turbulence and moves the separation line further to the rear stream. Rear side of the sphere reduces the size of the wake and decreases the drag. So these are all some of the basic understandings we should learn, so that how we can improve the product design in a real world application. So these are all some small spherical ball application, but this physical understanding of how I am manipulating the behavior of the flow. Initially, there was a laminar flow. Just I am putting a trip wire. Trip wire is nothing but a thin wire placed on the circumference of the sphere, maybe spot welded or glued to it, something like that. So that trips, that makes a tripping effect for the boundary layer, and then it changes the fluid flow into turbulent, and I'm changing the behavior of the fluid flow itself. That's how this kind of concepts and understanding the methods of manipulating the flow behavior will help the engineer in handling the turbulent flows in a real practical application point of view. And we are choosing the flow based on these characteristics: external flow or internal flow or natural convection flows. And as we observed, the turbulence effects are very close to the wall, and hence near wall modeling is very important. Whenever there is a wall surface, suppose there is a wall and the fluid flow is happening, and this particular wall surface, even though if we assume this is a smooth wall, under a microscope, if you observe, there will be small undulations, ups and downs on the surface, over which the fluid flow happens. And this small pockets will cause the similar thing what we observed, like a forward facing step, a rearward facing step, a forward facing step kind of scenarios. And a lot of turbulence will be generated from these spots. So these are the spots which produce turbulence. Production of turbulence happens on the wall surface, and the boundary layer grows. So everything happens closer to the wall. If heat transfer, the heat is transferred from the wall to the fluid, or if it's a hot fluid, heat is transferred from the hot fluid to the solid at the interface. So that interface where the fluid and solid communicate, that is called the near wall. And modeling the physics closer to the wall is important. That's why we have some near wall modeling options in the CFD software. These are all some advanced things which the students will be learning when they are actually going to use the softwares. And 2 examples of turbulence I'm showing because you have to understand the fluid flow behavior. You can see how complex the flow behavior is. over a flat surface because of the turbulent production from the wall surface. So when we are modeling the turbulence, we are having different options like one equation model or a two equation model or multi-equation model or LES and DNS. When we are going from a zero equation model to a DNS, we are including more physics, but on the same time, it increases the computational cost. So we have to do a trade-off, and this will also increase the computational time. Suppose if I use one equation model, I'll be able to perform the calculations in one day. If I do a DNS, it may take 1 month. Whether I have the freedom or the luxury of time, if I have 1 month time to solve a problem, if I have, I can choose this, and if I have the computational power, I can choose this. If I don't have so much computational power, and if I don't have so much luxury of time, I need a solution in 1 day. So I have to choose one equation model. So that is what I'm showing here. So we have to choose a turbulence model and the near wall treatment, and based on the computational resources what we have and the turnaround time constraints, whether I have a luxury of time 1 month or 1 day, and what is the flow physics I'm going to solve, and what are the kind of accuracies I'm expecting. Based on that, I have to choose a computational mesh and solve the governing equations on this mesh. So this is how CFD problems are getting solved. Now coming to having said a basic introduction about the CFD, I started with the product and then how the products is being conceived based on the customer understanding, and then how analysis is being carried out. And I gave a small glimpse of what is CFD. Now we will see some of the applications of CFD in automotive industry. There are a lot of components that handle a lot of fluids in auto industry also. Starting from a fuel. Fuel is a petrol or diesel which is being fed into the fuel tank, is a liquid. That liquid, when it's going into the engine, it gets combusted and it gets converted into gas, and that's also a gaseous fluid. So that involves a fluid. And water pumps used to cool the engines, and the water pump handle water, which is a liquid. Again, there is a fluid flow. So all scenarios where fluid flow is happening, CFD can be used. And when you switch on the AC in the car, you are actually cooling the air and then sending a cold air inside the compartment where the passengers, the driver, on the co-passenger, every passenger is sitting inside the cabin. Cabin is getting cooled. That means there is a thermal effect is happening where we are removing the heat from the cabin using a cold air. Air is a gaseous fluid. So again, CFD can be used. So water pump analysis, we are using CFD. And as I mentioned, the radiator is handling liquid and the air. There is a cooling air that is being used, and there is a fan that rotates and sucks the air from the front grill towards the engine. And there is a fluid flow. And we need to understand the resistance of these cooling cores. So we do a lot of CFD in automotive industry. And oil coolers. So we use the refrigerant oils and the engine cooling lubricating oil, and those oils need to be cooled and it has to be pumped, and we use pumps and coolers for that, and we use CFD for understanding the fluid flow and thermal behavior of these pumps and the coolers, performance of that. And cooling cores, and there is a kind of intercoolers, or when we use for improving the volumetric efficiency and thermal efficiency of the engine, we normally use go for a EGR cooling, exhaust gas recirculation. When we use that, we have an intercooler and we do CFD on that also. And thermostats, and you can see the oil tanks and the engine coolant tanks here, reservoirs, and there is a pressure cap on the radiator top. So all these components are getting analyzed using CFD for flow and thermal. And in the exhaust gas side, as I mentioned, when the fuel goes into the engine, it gets converted into gas. The power stroke happens, the combustion of the fuel, diesel or petrol happens, produces exhaust gas. The exhaust gas coming out with a very high velocity, and it's having a large quantity of pollutants. To reduce the pollutants and to meet the emission norms, we use catalytic converters or other devices to control the pollution that is being let out to the atmosphere. You can see the two-channel, bi-channel catalytic converter. One particular channel got eroded away, and this particular catalytic converter portion is not so much eroded. It's still live. The reason for this is, if the catalytic exhaust gas coming out from the engine, if it is made to flow into two channels of catalytic converters, ideally speaking, both should erode in a similar way. But one particular channel, this has got more eroded. That means that maybe higher flow is, say 70% of the exhaust flow is going through this, and 30% of exhaust gas is only going through this. In that scenario, more flow is happening in this right side of the catalytic converter and gets eroded more. From this itself, we can understand there is a flow imbalance happening in between the left and right catalytic converters. So we need to optimize this design using CFD to make sure that the flow is uniform, 50-50, almost 45-55 is also okay on either side. 50-50 is ideal. So that is how the CFD analysis is helping in the exhaust gas simulations also. And diesel particulate filters, how much clogging happens in the filters. These are some of the devices which you use for reducing the pollution, and catalyzed DPFs and SCRs, selective catalytic reduction. This uses ammonia liquid as a reductant, and when the exhaust gas comes with NO2 and NO along this exhaust pipe, this SCR is a device where this ammonia gets reacted following this chemical reaction, and that produces harmless nitrogen gas and water. That's a byproduct. So nitrogen gas is harmless because almost 77% of our air, what we even inhale, is 77% is nitrogen and 23% is oxygen. So nitrogen is an inert gas, it does not harm. So this SCR device producing nitrogen is harmless, and it's not going to harm the environment. So that is why we are using an SCR system for the diesel engines, particularly for heavy engines like trucks and earth movers kind of devices. And these kind of simulations can also is made possible using CFD to understand the optimal location, where I have to locate this injection, how much quantity I have to inject, how many times I have to inject, what is the spray quantity, what is the spray cone angle. When I'm injecting the spray, this comes out as a cone. What is the cone angle of injection I have to maintain? What is the quantity? How much times I have to inject based on the NOx sensor? How this injection going to be triggered? So there will be a NOx sensor to monitor the level of NOx in the exhaust gas. And those kind of systems can be simulated using CFD. And as I mentioned, inside the engine, how we are going to do the simulations for the combustion, direct injection combustion concept, or any change in the design of the piston or piston rings or in the combustion chamber volume. So we can do simulation using CFD. So these are some of the design modifications you can observe in the piston top, and a small design change or a small unwanted erosion in the pitting or cavities in this piston top will alter the flow dynamics inside the piston, and that will lead to a lot of fluid dynamic change and performance change. To highlight that, I would just like to show a video. So this is how a fluid flow intake inside a simulation happens, inside a cylinder happens. So we call this tumbling effect and mixing of the gases, and then the combustion happens at the end of the compression. There is a push and the exhaust gases are coming out. So these kind of fluid dynamics, this is actually an animation. This is not a simulation. This is an animation to help to understand the fluid behavior. But these kind of flow behaviors can be studied. And a lot of thermal analysis is being carried out in different components of the automobile. And then we use CFD for windshield de-icing also in cold countries. When you park the car outside, there are a lot of snow deposition on the front windshield, the front glass. And there is a regulatory requirement that the heaters inside the car should be able to remove the solid ice within 20 minutes. So this simulation deals with kind of a de-icing simulation where we do a phase change simulation. The solid ice, when it's heated up, getting melted. The red zone is the water, the blue zone is the ice. So the red zone increases with time of heating. So we are injecting a hot air from the inside the compartment, and that hits the glass and melts the ice. So these kind of simulations is also made possible using CFD. And we do a lot of extensive use of CFD for flow analysis in the front portion of the engine, where we have all the components. This particular picture shows the radiator in the front, and we can see the chassis component where my mouse, if you follow my mouse, and then there is a downstream engine components. And this is a top view showing the horizontal cut section. We can see the chassis frame here, and the radiator is here, and there is a fan which sucks the fluid, and that's why the blue velocity fluid air is coming inside, passing through the radiator. It's getting hot and removes the heat from the radiator, and then the hot fluid mixes inside the engine compartment. This hot air is actually colder than the engine temperature, thus it cools the engine also in the downstream direction. And when we go for the drag prediction simulations, we are doing a lot of CFD for external aerodynamics and in-cylinder combustion. Even headlamps, where I mentioned the lighting systems and visibility systems in our Valeo. The headlamps also, we do thermal CFD to understand the material behavior, whether the reflector material is a plastic, typically the reflector is a plastic, whether the reflector material temperature is within the maximum temperature allowed for the reflector particular material, so that it should not melt away. And we do simulations using the multiphysics modeling, like coupling the conduction, convection, and radiation. So this is a pattern of heat that is getting distributed on the reflector part. This is what we are seeing. And thermostats of the radiator, exhaust gas after treatment systems, which I recently mentioned. You can see the flow pattern. So there is a non-uniformity of flow when the fluid flow enters into the system. There is a recirculation, heavy recirculation happening, and then there is a porous media. We call this as a catalytic converter or a DPF, and then the flow streamlines and then comes out of the recirculation, comes out of towards the outlet can and goes out. So this is a typical CFD we do, and the major parameter we observe is the uniformity index. So the flow uniformity index is a quick parameter which will help us to understand the uniformity in the flow distribution. Oil cooler thermal CFD, and there you can see the original design was the red colored dotted line, and with the CFD we suggested changes, and then the design was modified to reduce the pressure drop in the system. And this is a heat exchanger CFD where we can see the flow pattern, contours of velocities shown here, and manifolds. Each and every component, each and every small components are analyzed individually, and these components when assembled and to a system and then other subsystem. So we will do one more set of analysis to ascertain the performance in the flow and the thermal behavior. We will be doing the analysis. In parallel, FEA analysis also will be carried out, and based on FEA, if there is some design change, the CAD engineer will update the design and give the CAD and CFD engineer a new design. The new design, again the CFD analysis will be carried out. Turbochargers. with the valve open condition and valve closed conditions. Different types of simulation combinations will be done using for the turbochargers, which rotates typically at like 1,20,000 RPM. And fan airflow predictions. And this is one of the confidence measures which will give us confidence on the CFD. We can see the experimental measurement was done on a lot of temperature points, and we can see the red points which are coming from the CFD matching exactly with the experimental predictions, giving confidence over the analysis. And when we go for the engine cooling system as a system, initially we were seeing small components as individually. Now when we go for the engine coolant system, initially the coolant liquid is blue, and with the engine is running, we can see the temperature rises in the system, and the blue fluid changes color into red and carries the hot energy from the thermal energy from the hot engine towards the radiator and cools down and brings back the cold fluid for further cooling the engine. So this kind of simulations also is possible to do in CFD. So I would like to show one example on aerodynamics where car without roof box and with roof box design 1 and 2 are compared. So when we do the CFD analysis for this initial car without roof box, we got a drag of 0.3305. Actually 0.3 is a good drag coefficient for an aerodynamic car. 0.33 is slightly high. And when the roof box is attached with a straight back design, the side cuts are very straight, blunt, sharp corners. When we had this roof box in the top, the drag increases to 0.4192, which is very high. But we need to have a roof box and we have to optimize the design. So the CAD engineer was requested to change the design, and the design was changed to tapered black and with the soft corners. And when we do the CFD again, the drag reduced to 0.40 instead of 0.4192. Drag got reduced. So this how CFD helps in product development and product design, working cohesively with the CAD engineer, back and forth. We do a lot of design iterations and we arrive at the final design, which may not be an optimal design. 0.4 is still high. If we keep on optimizing this roof box design to reduce say 100 counts to make it 0.39, the effort involved will be too much in that, and we have to do a trade-off whether the efforts involved is good enough or worth enough for the drag reduction. So we will stop at some point. We will go for the production. This shows the isosurface of the wake behind the vehicle with and without roof box. We can see the wake behind the vehicle with roof box is more. That means the drag is more. So this fluid dynamic understanding will help a visualization of the flow characteristics around the components being studied. That's the advantage of CFD. Some other applications I would like to highlight, and I'll quickly close. Aerodynamics of a racing yacht. Racing yacht is typically sports, and a lot of CFD is being done on that. You can see the aerodynamic profiles and how the pressure distribution happens. And CFD is done on the wave resistance prediction for the hull shape and the rudders and the winglets. All these components are studied individually to understand the effect of water and air drag. So in a yacht, typically we will be having a portion of that drag is coming from the water, and large portion of the drag is coming from the air, and the yacht is moving. So the air pushes the sails and then it will have a drag effect on that. So CFD is done with a combined water and air fluids. It's a two-phase flow. And CFD is also used in environmental modeling, as I mentioned in the chimney example, how the pollutions are dispersed into the residential areas. And that kind of dispersion studies can be carried out using CFD. And still you have, we have boundary layers or even in the urban and rural climates, rural environments. even when we have trees and buildings, and we will have boundary layers above the earth surface. When we're coming closer to the buildings, we'll have a laminar sublayer and an inertial sublayers, typical to any boundary layer in these zones also. In the aerodynamics, we use CFD for all the components, because the entire flight is traveling in the air without any support. So the thrust offered by the engine should be equal and above the payload, and it should make the flight to travel in the forward direction. So the lot of CFD is being done in the aviation industry also. So that's the end of my presentation on different applications of CFD. Not only in automotive, I have touched upon different other domains also, like yacht, aerodynamics in aviation industry, and in the environmental modeling. So these are the things I have just covered to highlight where and all CFD can be used as an efficient tool for product development and design optimization, and for better flow distribution characteristics and thermal characteristics. So what we saw today is, we started off with the introduction to Valeo. We started with the product and we understood what is the need of a customer. And we saw what is an analysis, different types of analysis and applications. We saw a small introduction about the turbulence and the turbulence modeling, how it is being carried out in the CFD. And we saw some applications in auto industry and some applications other than the automotive industry we saw in the CFD perspective. So that's the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you very much. I don't see any questions over there, but I think the times have changed a lot. Like when we were in the uni, we used to chow down with a lot of equations in solving. I think now CFD does everything for us. The thing when I see this presentation, when you talk about the NOx, it reminds me Fast and Furious. That's the only thing I remember about the NOx one. But just to wrap up, like I want to ask you a simple question on, is there any new change that is feasible or done in CFD that makes a particular changeover in the car industry?
Yeah, lot of things are being coupled with CFD, like along with the optimization tools. We have some softwares like Heaves or Eyesight. Those kind of softwares are being coupled with CFD to do an optimization studies. And even there are some research work is happening coupling the kind of artificial intelligence and machine learning applications with CFD, where the AI learns from the CFD results and predicts the future simulations without the need of a simulation. So those kind of learnings are happening in automotive industry. That is also there. And also we do something like meta modeling approaches, coupling the CFD analysis. It's similar to AI, but meta modeling is kind of having a set of detailed analysis results. With that result, how I can predict a new situation or new scenario within the set of given constraints, within the set of boundary conditions. So those are some of the new things happening. And with the move towards the move of the automotive industry from a regular conventional IC engines towards the electric vehicles and automotive autonomous vehicles, CFD is also being used in electric vehicles to understand the thermal loads of electric motors and how the temperature distribution happens in the electric motors, because the electric motors are put to use for a long time. Typically when we use a fan, even in our home, if you have a ceiling fan, we use an electric motor and that motor runs for hours together, like 8 hours or 9 hours. But we don't do much CFD in that because the design is already established and robust. But when we use it for automotive industry, for an electric vehicle, we use 4 electric motors in 4 wheels. There is no engine, there is no transmission system. We directly couple an electric motor to a wheel, and then we supply current to the electric motor to drive the vehicle. So the torque involved is very high, and the thermal energy or heat released from those motors is very high, and we need CFD to understand the cooling systems with an efficient and effective cooling of electric motors for the life of the motor. So those kind of applications are being used. In autonomous vehicles, with the advent of electric motors and thermal battery packs and a lot of sensors, and when we use the autonomous vehicles, we use cameras, right? The cameras are the eyes of the vehicle, but the camera eyes having a lens cover with the front glass, if it gets dusted, the visibility effect of the cameras get reduced. So we are now giving a system called lens cleaning system, whereas at intervals of specific intervals of time, or when the lens cover gets polluted or dirt deposition is more, a sensor senses that and triggers a lens cleaning system, where a spray jet comes into action and sprays water into the camera lens cover, and a wiper wipes it off the water and makes the lens surface thing cleaner. So there again comes the water, which is used as a cleaning fluid. We do CFD for that, and to understand the cleaning mechanism in that. So CFD being used in electric and autonomous vehicles also.
Okay, there is one question from Dr. Kumaragaruparan. Do you work in advanced cooling techniques in Valeo?
Advanced cooling systems, maybe I think he's trying to ask about heat pipes or any other types of cooling system, I believe. Right now, we are not working in those kind of advanced cooling systems. Based on the component, based on the size of the component and the heat intensity, like electronics cooling, we may use heat pipes, and in automotive, like battery packs cooling, we use water or other nanofluid based cooling systems. So it varies depending upon the application.
Okay, so that was a really wonderful presentation by you, and few as with the background of electrical, even for me, some of the things are very interesting to know. Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Kula. We really appreciate your time and effort in sharing your session with us. And thank you all the participants, and thank you very much. I think he has put his email on the slide. If you have any questions or
queries,
anything,
you can drop in a mail to me. I'll be happy to reply back.
Yeah. So as a matter of fact, like he's assisting some of our postgraduate students also in CFD type of analysis. And also we take this opportunity to thank you very much for that also. And we hope that we will continue to work together in the future. Thank you very much, Dr. Kula. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Aravind. And thank you all for patient listening. Have a good day. Let me sign off from the session, Aravind.
Yeah. Thanks very much.
Thank you.